What's up? It's Trey Harris here, wide receiver for Los Angeles Chargers, and you're tuning in to Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dale Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning in to the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein. It is Monday, April 27th, which means we are here to talk about the 2027 NFL draft class. Are you ready? I'm kidding. The 2026 NFL draft is officially in the books. The Chargers. And that me on repeat this entire episode, Dan. The Chargers came into this draft, Dan, with 5 draft selections. They ended up with 8 because they executed 1, but 2 trade backs. And if the definitive message was that they loaded up on areas of need, Joe Ortiz doesn't want to hear a goddamn thing about the offensive line from anybody, anytime soon. Dan Wolkenstein, it was a hell of a draft weekend for sure. The 18th annual draft party took place at the Hefner residence. Dan was there with a contingent of our diehard draft fans. Cincinnati Bengals were represented. The Green Bay Packers were represented. The Tennessee Titans were represented. Chicago Bears were represented. And it was chaos. Seahawks represented. Thank you. Day 2 was great. Or excuse me, day 1 was great. Day 2 was chaos.
In the best way.
In the best possible way.
The absolute best way. Welcome to Chargers Unleashed, and welcome to Jake's euphoric moment of a 2026 season already. And honestly, of the entire Chargers tenure for us here with Chargers Unleashed, I would say day 2, and keep me if I'm honest, keep me if I'm wrong. Wow, keep me honest, Jake. That may have been the happiest moment of your entire Chargers fandom since doing the show. Would you agree?
Real talk. I'm trying to think of like game moments where I was in maybe like the same type
aside
of
from
euphoria.
the game, aside from game stuff.
Outside of game moments, yeah, that might be. I mean, I'm even trying to like think of like player signings and like free agency that I've kind of gone, I've been really excited about. No, I can't think of one.
For those who are new to this, Jake has been pounding the table for the Chargers to trade back for a decade plus, literally, and has been giving us all of the reasons why they should. And with the previous regime, it just did not happen. And how many years have we all watched this draft unfold and have said, oh, they're in a prime position to trade down. They can get so much more draft capital. They are in such a better position if they, only to not. When that moment came on day 2, which we'll talk about day 1, 2, and 3, but I'm just off the top. When that moment came on day 2, where I believe it was at pick 54, when we saw on the ticker the Chargers logo slip back from 55 to 63. I have never seen a more joyous let's see what's a good word for this. Hydrated.
Fair.
And excited Jake Hefner.
Lack of sustenance, for sure. Lack of sustenance, but hydrated very well.
Jake's dreams came to reality, not once, but twice. And by the time that second trade back occurred, after the Jake Slaughter pick, it was a fog. Let me just say this. Day 2, day 1 and day 2 was an absolute dream. And the vibes that were had at the Hefner residence for the 2026 NFL draft and also Jake's birthday. Happy birthday, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Could not have been beaten.
41 never felt so good.
Or bad the next morning.
or bad the next morning.
But look, we'll get to day 1, 2, and 3 of this draft haul. Again, Chargers added capital, traded up and down. Traded down twice, up once, got as much as, 9 assets? Got as little as 5. Here we are, and 8 picks for the 2026 NFL draft, and we're going to get to all of it. Off the top, though, Jake, I would say this. The draft class might not be the flashiest, and it might not be the one that's getting all the A pluses and all the national reviews.
Mm-hmm.
But I've said this before. I don't know if you're going to see that many applause and all that stuff now, but the dividends that you'll see this pay off, I believe, come November, December, January, is I think when we will start to see the reward here. Joe Ortiz, to your point, Jake, understood the assignment. They heard Chargers fans and they saw Justin Herbert over the past 2 years. They listened to Mike McDaniel. They paid attention to the trenches. They added depth, and they stuck to their board. So, Jake, we're going to get to all of it. Let's pay the bills, though, real quick.
Before we get into the 2026 NFL draft class, I want to remind you that Chargers Unleashed is being brought to you today by FanDuel. The betting does not stop for the NFL, even in the offseason, and FanDuel gives you the capability to stay in the action with NFL futures right now. You can get the Los Angeles Chargers at plus 185 to win in the AFC West and plus 1,500 to win the Super Bowl. So the value is there waiting for anyone that is looking to ride with the Los Angeles Chargers. So if you are ready to ride with the Chargers, make sure to use the promo code ChargersLAFB for your chance to win at FanDuel and let them know that Chargers Unleashed sent you.
So real quick, Jake, let's go off the top. In summary, the Chargers at pick 22, your new edge rusher of the future, Akheem Mesidor from Florida. At pick 63, in my belief, your center of the future and your guard of the present, Jake Slaughter. You heard the front office talk about this. Then after the trade back again, Brennan Thompson, the fastest wide receiver in college, is now on your Los Angeles Chargers team. Mr. Mike McDaniel didn't have to take his shirt off, but he said he would. Travis Burke out of Memphis, the tackle. I was too. Travis Burke, the tackle out of Memphis, comes in for the Chargers, provides very good statistics, if you will, and also a behemoth of a man. Not many can say they're taller than Joe Alt, but he can. Genesis Smith, the safety from Arizona. Nick Barrett, the interior defensive lineman from South Carolina. Logan Taylor, an actual guard, we'll talk about it, from Boston College. And Alex Harkey, probably a swing tackle. That rounds it out, Jake. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks. I believe 5 in the trenches.
6, if you count Akheem Mesidor.
They told us. Here we are. So, Jake, what are your thoughts on, before we get to round by round, which we'll get to here, overall, like, what are your vibes on the draft class? What are your vibes on, is it mission accomplished overall? And was there anything that was incredibly either surprising, frustrating, or see, I told you so?
This might be the best blend of a Jim Harbaugh, Mike McDaniel, and Chris O'Leary draft class. Now, hear me out. What's the message that we heard from Jim Harbaugh during his introductory press conference 2 years ago? Invest in the trenches, offensive lineman, tip of the spear, this, that, and the other. It may have taken 2 years to get there, but you can't say in this draft, regardless, I'll hear all the arguments and I'll understand them as far as, the Jake Slaughter pick, and we can talk about that. But it may have taken Justin Herbert. It shouldn't have taken Justin Herbert to be absolutely obliterated in the 2025 season for this to come to fruition. It shouldn't have taken the worst offensive line in football to bring this draft class about. We can all understand that. I can understand that. But talk about finally learning from your mistakes and investing in the offensive line, not just for 2026, but definitely beyond that. And done in a way where you spend 4 of your 8 draft picks on offensive linemen, ones that have positional flexibility, whether it's at guard or center, tackle guard, swing tackle. Logan Taylor, who can play, has experience playing 4 out of the 5 offensive lineman positions during college. And then even in undrafted free agency, you go out and you get Isaiah World, who was slated to be in probably the day 3 conversation if he was not injured. So 7, really? 7 guys you brought in, essentially in the trenches. It's crazy. It's crazy. Again, we shouldn't have had to have Justin Herbert blown to smithereens in order for this draft class to come about. But here we are. Nextly, as it relates to Mike McDaniel.
8, I would say, Jake, if you added the Eastern Michigan kid.
Good call. We'll get there in a minute. Now, you want to talk about those offensive linemen fitting in Mike McDaniel's scheme. Everybody wants to talk about Jake Slaughter. We'll do that in a second. But in terms of the profiles, and this is what I have kind of had to learn over the last couple of weeks that we've been getting closer to the draft, is that you take the fall out of free agency. And I'll admit, I'm still kind of perplexed for the way that they handled it. And I think we all were.
We all are. I think there's still money to be spent.
But after the Cole Strange move, and really no other moves to take place after that, I realized that you really have to understand that I don't know any better than Jim Harbaugh. I don't know any better than Mike McDaniel. They know that they have a plan in place for what they want to do. That's for sure. Does that mean it's going to work? Time will tell. Nobody's saying that it's 100% a surefire, foolproof plan. But when you look at the profile of bringing in a Jake Slaughter or Cole Strange or any of the Logan Taylors, there is a profile and there is an athletic build and skill set that they are going for to make this work.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I told Dan after day 3 was, in this particular system, as opposed to what you saw from Mike Devlin and Greg Roman, it's night and day for how you're wanting to build this offensive line outside of your blue chip players in Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. It is now completely different. So essentially throw out everything that you thought that you knew about offensive line analysis and just understand that Mike McDaniel is going to take you for a ride. And he took us all for a ride. But we just have to hang on and watch how this all plays out.
So let's go through. So, Akheem Mesidor. He has been on our minds, has been a topic of conversation with us here on the show and our guests for months. So no surprise when the Akheem Mesidor pick came in. And Jake, you can attest to this. As soon as the Ruben Bain selection happened in that draft, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum, but our whole crew was talking about round 1 and what are the Chargers going to do and what are we wanting. I said the only edge that I was really going to be happy with them taking at 22 was Mesidor. Everyone else would have been, I get it, I guess, sure, not excitement. I was thrilled about the Mesidor pick, as I know you were. You've been on the train hype for a while, as was Trevor Sikkema was, as you've seen a lot of people, right? Like, I don't think we need to talk about how awesome Mesidor is going to be and how awesome he was at Miami. I mean, the kid is unreal. A little bit older, sure, but he is ready to perform now. I don't think you could have asked for a better edge player at 22 than him in a team that needs to win and perform right now.
Yeah, I agree, Dan. When you look at the way that draft fell, it fell very much in the Chargers' favor to where it's like you thought to yourself, like they have to be going the defensive line. There's no way that they are going to be making a reach for Chase Besantis right now at 22. 7 offensive linemen went off the board, guard and tackle included, before the Chargers ended up picking at 22. The selection of Caleb Banks by Minnesota, that was another one that kind of threw a curveball into a lot of people's minds. Obviously, Ty Simpson being selected by the Rams was another pick that ended up, moving another player down closer to the Chargers in that circumstance. But when you look at just all the offensive linemen that went off the board at that point in time, so it started with Spencer Fano at 9. Then it went immediately right after that, Francis Moaga at 10 to Miami. Then it was Caden Proctor at Miami, or excuse me, Caden Proctor to the Miami Dolphins from Alabama. Ioane went at 14 to the Ravens. Then you had Blake Miller go at 17, which is a little bit surprising, even though I know that the Detroit Lions needed more tackle than anything else. I didn't expect them to go that route, so that was a little bit of a surprise to me. And maybe just the fact that he went before Monroe Freeling, who went at 19 to the Carolina Panthers. And then Pittsburgh goes tackle. Everything was lining up for Akheem Mesidor as far as right value, right selection for the Chargers. It just made sense for a guy who goes 100 miles an hour like Mesidor does. And again, to think about what this edge room is going to look like now between Thule, Mack, Mesidor as your 3. You can keep throwing me the 25 years old argument until you're blue in the face, and I'm just going to casually brush it off because I really just don't care. You want to come up with another compelling argument to me about why this guy can't be successful in this particular system? I'm still here to listen to it. I'm just waiting for the next argument to come to me. People tried to throw out injury history. That was a few years ago. Did we all realize that what he did last season went all the way to the national championship game? And I believe had 3 sacks in the playoffs during that run. Trevor Sigma spoke about it ad nauseum as far as why Mesidor is who he is, why he's pro ready to go. This was a fantastic pick for the Chargers. And maybe the biggest reason for that, and again, I echo Trevor's comments on this, the difference between Akheem Mesidor going to the Chargers as opposed to going to the Cardinals is night and day based on the fact that if you want to use the age argument, you could use it in this circumstance. To maximize a rookie contract in the best possible situation for a win-now scenario, Akheem Mesidor can do that for you over the next 4 years. Akheem Mesidor can do that when Khalil Mack no longer is in the NFL. Akheem Mesidor can do that when he is paired up with Tuli Tuipulotu. He can do this for the next 4 years.
Highest floor, quickest ceiling.
Yes. Would anybody disagree that this is not the window right now in Jim Harbaugh's year 3 to get this done over the next 3 seasons? Am I wrong? We can't start being projected to say, okay, well, once Jim Harbaugh is gone, what's it going to mean for Mesidor and the roster? You can't start thinking about 2028 yet. You can't start thinking about 2030 yet.
It doesn't matter. I put it this way, Jake. I would love to have to worry about paying a 28, 29-year-old Mesidor the Brinks truck. That sounds wonderful. There are plenty of 28, 29-year-old edge players who are getting the bag, who are absolutely incredible. I'm not worried about any of that. It's just a moot point to me.
Also, is it a little bit poetic that now Mesidor gets to sit in the same locker room and learn from a guy who is plus 30 years old and still being able to produce in this league? I am not
a decade old.
Yes, I am not worried about this selection at all. I'm thrilled about this choice for the Chargers. I was high on Mesidor the entire way. He ended up being my number 3 edge rusher behind Bain and Bailey, and for good reason. Just
And he got him
because of
22.
yes, and it's not just from the standpoint of speed, his aggression, his handwork, his inside out versatility. It's literally it's tailor made for Chris O'Leary to take all the notes that he had from the Jesse Minter tree as far as what he was doing with his defenders. Don't remember the situations that he would want to get Mack, Owe, and Tooley on the field at the same time. You can do this with Akheem Mesidor. You can find those situations to where you can get the 3 of them on the field.
It brings a lot.
It's a great start for Chris O'Leary to get a player of Akheem Mesidor's stature.
If it's a huge need, first off, it helps with the future of the position with an aging Khalil Mack. I think he bodes perfectly well with a Tooley, right? Continues to allow them to do the whole multiple looks and different defensive fronts. And it's kind of an insurance policy as well. And again, like the dude had almost 13 sacks last year. Like he's as polished as you can get for an edge player in the NFL needing instant production. And to get, in your opinion, edge 3 at 22 is incredible. That's a steal. Like you'll take it. And so for me, it was kind of a win-win. You got the need checked. You got the insurance policy, if you will, for your edge position. You got the draft value at a high surplus position that's going to pay 30, 40, $50 million on a rookie contract. So it lined up. So Akheem Mesidor, 22. I think mostly Chargers fans, again, aside from the age and some people talk about the injury concerns, edge, guard. Those are the 2 biggest needs. I think Chargers fans thought after night 1, they got the edge selection made. So Mesidor becomes your newest Los Angeles Charger. Night 1 in the books. Everyone points to night 2. This is the night. This is D-Day. This is when the Chargers must draft their guard. Head hits the pillow. We wake up, get to 54, and Jake Hefner, like Vince Vaughn himself.
Go nuts. Go nuts,
For those
baby.
watching, they go crazy. Then trade back to 63 and select, honestly, the guy that Jake's been talking about for years. The center from Florida, who was announced at guard, Jake Slaughter. Jake, I will give you the floor because this was your guy. And, I mean, look, they traded the Patriots. They traded pick number 55. They got 63, 131, and 202. So instead of having one pick at 55, they've got another pick in round 1, added a 4th round pick, added a 6th round pick.
Yeah. I'll set the stage.
When Jake Slaughter was announced, my first thought was, I don't care who it is. They're getting somebody to protect Justin Herbert. Win in my book. The floor is yours.
Let's set the stage here real quick because we were all pretty bummed to hear Chase Bisontis' name get called very early on day 2. Got selected.
Rutledge
second
went
pick,
like 4 picks later.
Second pick. Rutledge went at the end of the first round. Then it was Chase Bisontis with the second pick to start the second round. And you thought to yourself, like, oh, God, that's a terrible situation for the Chargers. And then there was no other offensive line taken by the time that 55 rolled around. And everybody, and myself included, would have thought, okay, this is perfect for the Pregnon situation right here. Here was the dream scenario of Trevor Sikkema. If you can get Akheem Mesidor and Emmanuel Pregnon, like you should be riding high. But no, the Chargers didn't do that.
Or whatever.
They traded out of the pick with the New England Patriots. For some reason, Joe Ortiz really likes making trades with the Patriots. He made the selection that ended up netting them Lad McConkey, and we remember how that one, and Tarheeb Still, which we remember how that one ended up playing out. And then you keep going down the line. So the Chargers trade out of 55 and still Emmanuel Pregnon is on the board. Now, I will admit, as I know that it perplexed a lot of people, would I have rather seen Emmanuel Pregnon be the selection realistically? Yeah, I won't lie. I won't lie about it. But in the scope, again, of what I said opening the show, when we're talking about Mike McDaniel and what he's trying to do with this offensive line, he has a type. He has a type. And also, the bigger question is, how the hell did Emmanuel Pregnon, why did he fall as far as he did? It's value, but why did he fall all the way down to where he did? But as it relates to Jake Slaughter, Dan, I have been a fan of his over the last 2 years. I was actually surprised that he didn't end up coming out last draft, considering the fact that you had so many injuries and hits to that center class that really ended up whittling down the talent of it. It really depleted the center class. So I was very shocked in a year where we all thought that the Chargers were going to end up selecting a center last season, that Jake Slaughter didn't come out this year. He ended up staying in, and to his credit, he ended up as one of the most consistent centers over the last 2 years as far as his pass blocking and his run blocking grade. He has extremely high IQ for recognizing stunts. He's got a good combination of size and awareness, and especially athleticism. Getting to the second level is his game. He has great technique, his ability to anchor protection along with his movement ability. And again, to get to the second level, that has been what he is doing for the last 2 years. And I hearken back to, I can't remember exactly who it was on PFF, if it was Chadwick or someone else, but they kind of just went off on a rant to say why Jake Slaughter at that point in time, and I think it was just a clip from last year, of why he was the best center in the league. Look at who he's had to play. Look at the defensive linemen that he's gone up against over the past 2 years. He's got experience to do this. Now, I'm not going to shoot down anybody who has doubts about his ability to play guard, for the fact that he is a career center, and everybody wants to keep bringing up the 2 snaps at the Senior Bowl where it didn't look good. But I'm telling you right now, there is more trust than I have with Mike McDaniel and Butch Barry than Greg Roman and Mike Devlin. And for what their plan is for Justin Herbert, I have trust in that. But from an athletic standpoint, is it going to take work? Is it going to be flawless? Absolutely not. I'm not going to be naive to that fact. But as a player, and one of the caliber of the IQ that Jake Slaughter plays with and the athleticism that Jake Slaughter plays with, I think that he is more than capable of being successful in this season or in this system. And I messaged Trevor Sikkema the morning after on day 3 before everything commenced, because I wanted to get his thoughts on the Slaughter pick. So I said, curious to get your thoughts on the Jake Slaughter selection. And Trevor said, great scheme fit for his style. I never thought he'd be a guard, though. And I said, I absolutely agree with you on the scheme fit, especially with how McDaniel built up the offensive line in Miami. I said, do you think that he's athletic enough to make the move? And Trevor says, as an athlete, definitely. He's like, the only thing I'll wonder is if he'll have to put on some weight, which he probably will. He probably will have to put on some additional weight. But the athletic profile that, again, we've seen what Mike McDaniel likes, and to have success in this system, Jake Slaughter fits that profile.
Go check the RAS score. I think it was 9.97 or something crazy.
It's pretty damn good.
Like third out of 700 and something centers since the thing was started. At the end of the day, the Mesidor pick, I think, was probably the best kind of instant impact / production / need, whatever. You could argue that the Slaughter pick might be the one that is reaping the rewards for the longest time for this Chargers team.
Very well could be.
Worst case. I shouldn't say worst case, but let's say it doesn't work out as guard, and he only becomes your future center as soon as next year, the year after.
Fuck it, I'll take that.
Again, we're talking about an All-American SEC player, gone up against all of them, arguably the best center in the class, arguably the best interior offensive lineman in the class. They see him as flexible to be able to play guard or center. He is an absolute motor and culture setter for this team, fits directly with what the staff wants. The interior offensive line has been the biggest Achilles heel for this Chargers team for years now. The guy has the athletic profile that is exactly what Mike McDaniel and everyone who's talked about Mike McDaniel guards has. And let's face it, most people that were talking about Emmanuel Pregnon were saying, well, he's not really the best fit for the Chargers, but he still plays guard, so I'll take him. Would you rather take the guy who is the better fit and has to learn to play guard, or the guy who's not a good fit but knows to play guard in a different scheme? To me, I'm taking the guy who can bring the culture, can bring leadership, can bring stability, can bring flexibility, and can help interior offensive line aside from him for years to come. The guy's got glowing reviews from everyone. Is it a risk to be your starting guard? Sure. But so would Pregnon. So was Zion Johnson when he was picked. And he was a first-round pick. He was a top 15 pick. So just because the guy is slated to be an all-pro or be slated to be a first, it's all risk. It depends on the dude. It depends on the environment. It depends on the coaching. And right now, I think the dude got it checked. I think the coaching staff has checks. And now it's just a matter of development. But let's say he does turn out to be that good of guard. All of this shit that people are complaining about for nothing. And honestly, if I were a betting man, this is the type of cap that I would bet on to rise.
Give it a chance to fail before you think it's going to fail.
And again, they also brought in contingency plans galore with how many draft picks they brought in to address the offensive line. So, Jake, all right, cool. Round 2 in the books. Sweet. We're so excited for round 3. More drinks were had. We were getting a little blurry. And then, oh my goodness, wouldn't you know, another trade. And at this point, I'm pretty sure this is where Jake and I absolutely lost our collective bleep.
Yes. The crazy part about this, Dan, if you go back in between where Jake Slaughter was taken and where Emmanuel Pregnon ended up being selected, you thought to yourself, like, oh my God, the Chargers are on the clock again and Pregnon still hasn't been taken. Maybe you double dip at offensive line because he's still there. Because there was not another guard that was taken in that window between Jake Slaughter and the time that the Chargers were on that clock again. Chargers said, no, we're going to go in a different direction. We're going to acquire more picks. We're going to completely move out of the third round. Emmanuel Pregnon ended up going at 88, by the way, middle of the third round. And then Jennings Dunker went at 96 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I'll give the Pittsburgh Steelers credit. They did some very good work on ramping up their offensive line. So tip of the hat to them. So then you were out completely out of the third round.
Yeah, you traded
and in so doing, on days,
yes. You sent 86 to Cleveland, and in return, you got pick 105, 145, and 206, which netted you an additional 4th, 5th, and 6th round selection.
So on day 1, having only 5 selections, you come into day 3 having 7 additional picks, or 7 total. Somehow you netted 9 total picks. That's pretty damn good, especially in a year that you absolutely needed to do something like this. So then we move on to round 4.
You're headed to bed, right? You're headed to bed, whether it was that night or the morning, or
whether it was
maybe it didn't hit bed, or maybe it's a
it hit the floor. It hit a few things before it hit the bed.
Oh avoided it.
the end of day 2. That's for sure. I tell you what, man, those NFL draft drinking games that you play, just know that the beauty part about it is, Dan, and I'm sorry I have to go off on it, is
we have blackmail for
the beauty part about it is, you think about the draft kicking off for day 2 starting at 4:00. You are guaranteed to be in bed by 9. It's not like it's not like an early or a late night rager from college. But the way that our drinking game is built on,
not for the faint of heart.
Oh yeah. You got to come in. You got to be coming in made of steel, and you might be melted down by the end of the night. That is for sure.
You will be. I think we all were. So going into day 3, you're like, all right, they got in their mind the guard, they got the edge, and now it's like, crap. BPA, let's go to work. Ton of picks. Let's move it up and down the board. Let's go crazy. Maybe get some weapons for Justin. Maybe get some more protection for Justin. But really, BPA, let's go to work. Let's Joe Ortiz cook.
Prior to the draft, Dan, I want to say maybe an hour before I said, what was it? Chargers in their 4th round picks, they had, so it was 105, was it 125 and 131. And I thought to myself, and I said, they could honestly go BPA here in any direction as it relates to wide receiver, corner, offensive line, interior defensive line, in any order, but with those positions being the primary targets. Sure enough, at 105, Mike McDaniel, arguably Mike McDaniel's favorite pick of the entire night. I definitely think it's maybe the fan base's favorite pick that they ended up selecting. The speedster, the fastest man at the combine, Mississippi State's own wide receiver, Brennan Thompson, goes to the Chargers early in the 4th round at pick 105. Mike McDaniel gets his burner. I say on Twitter, Justin Herbert can finally load up the howitzer again, which he can. You add in some ability at kick returner now, Dan, which in the big picture of things, this may spell the end for one Darius Davis.
Maybe. Yeah.
Because Brennan Thompson, I think that his profile, his speed, his his variance for what he can give an overall offense and a special teams unit, I think you can figure out different ways to utilize him better, especially for Mike McDaniel. You go back to the Miami drafts over the last couple of years, and Dan, you'll remember the name better than me, but who was the wide receiver that was drafted like really late by Miami that we were pissed off about? We couldn't believe that they got him because Miami was just going wide receiver with those like late round picks. I can't remember exactly who it was. It may have been, but I'll tell you this:
or Todd Washington. Yeah.
Mike McDaniel's going to figure out every which way to get Brennan Thompson involved in this offense and uncork the arm of Justin Herbert that has seemingly been dormant for the past year and a half. The exciting part about this, Dan, is now when you look at this Chargers wide receiver core, we still haven't heard the announcement officially on whether or not the Chargers are going to pick up the 5th-year option for Quentin Johnson, but he is at least on the roster for this season. Quentin Johnson, Ladd McConkey, Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith, and Brennan Thompson. You got some speed in that group. And how long have we been wanting to talk about speed for Justin Herbert? Fast guys, people that can take the top off. Not only that, Brennan Thompson is an excellent route runner. Not only can he burn past people naturally, but man, he's got some great footwork to beat people in coverage. He could do it. So is this going to be a guy that's going to be seeing, 8 or 9 targets a game? Probably not. But I'll tell you what, the ones that he's able to connect with Justin Herbert on are going to be the impact plays that you've been looking forward to see for the Chargers for a long time.
The number of explosive plays that this kid had last year was ridiculous. I mean, the guy could take a top off of anything. And honestly, he would have been a lot better if he had a better supporting cast around him in college. He can go both vertically and horizontally. Can certainly open up the middle of the field for the guys that need it here with Trey Harris, with a Quentin Johnston, with a Honky, of course. He gives you a different element that you can use and deploy that you just don't have. And, Quentin's fast. Takes him a bit to get there, but he's fast. This guy, blink an eye, he's gone. Like, there are levels to fast and quick, and he's got both. Yeah, we're talking 4.2s here. So he was the guy. I mean, you saw the thing in the post where they had Mike McDaniel talk about, like, if you could find me a way to get Brennan Thompson, I'm going to take my shirt off here right in the war room. He was pumped.
And what did he say afterwards? He's like, if you're not excited, you're dead.
Something like that. Yeah, this was a Mike McDaniel pick for sure. For sure. So think Tyreek Hill type. Think just absolute moves. The guy can absolutely fly. So then Chargers use their 117th pick and go out and get Travis Burke, who, if you go look at the stats, pretty dang good. Allowed 8 hurries, 2 hits, 3 sacks all year this year. He's played right tackle and left tackle in the past. And you look at some of the grades that he has. Run blocking grade this year, 84.2. Pass blocking grade, 81.5. Zone grade, 88.7. And true pass set, pass block grade of 82.2.
I'm glad you actually brought this up, Dan, because not only does this show exactly what the Chargers are moving away from in a gap-heavy scheme from Greg Roman and where they're going for the zone-heavy scheme for Mike McDaniel. But the interesting thing about it is when you watch clips of Travis Burke, you think to yourself, like, oh my God, like this guy should kill it in a gap scheme because he's an asshole in like the best possible way. He just puts people on the ground. And it's obviously the man is a giant. Joe Alt is not the tallest offensive lineman in the room anymore. There's going to be a learning curve for him as far as his pad level that he'll have to play with, which is natural for a guy for him at any size. And that's been true for anybody that's come in around these same type of measurables for them to kind of get around and get used to the edges that, are at the NFL and having to somehow get low and wrangle some of these guys that are coming in with great bend and speed. But at the same time, Dan, it's just Dane Brugler had a third round grade on Travis Burke. And remember, the Chargers had traded back up. They gave up one of their 6th round picks to get in this position at 117 to get him. Again, if you're talking about, once again, reinvesting in the offensive line, giving a little bit extra depth back up to the Trey Pipkins or the Joe Alts or the Rashawn Slaters or whatever it may be, for a guy that's his size that's somehow thriving in a zone scheme, it's really bizarre, actually. It shouldn't be the case. It should be the opposite. But he is. So I'll admit, was I thinking that they were going to go in that direction with that particular pick? No, I didn't. But then you start looking and you're like, okay, hey, it's another offensive line pick. You get it. And hey, someone who plays with the type of physicality and demeanor that Travis Burke does, shit, yeah, you want that in your offensive lineman room.
I mean, the dude's 6'9", 315. He's 23 years old. The guy's, to your point, he's an a-hole. He's physical. I mean, he is a Harbaugh type, man. I mean, 3rd round grade by many. Chargers find a way to get him at pick 117 in the 4th. Then fast forward. If you're looking for a new car, you can go Lexus, you can go Toyota, you can go Genesis. Genesis Smith, your newest safety on Los Angeles Chargers. This is a traits pick, in my opinion, though, at 131. I think a lot of people love the traits of the size. They love his coverage. There's some questions about tackling. But he seems kind of like the center field type to enable Derwin to stay down low. But he's got to clean up like the consistency and has to clean up some of those miscues tackling wise.
Mm-hmm.
Get that down. You're ready to run.
once again, you want to pander to some of your best players and give them some help. You did that with the Akheem Mesidor pick. You did that with your 2 offensive linemen up to this point right now. Derwin James was very happy with this pick. So was Daniel Jeremiah. He loved this pick because he was a big Genesis Smith fan. I looked at this, Dan, and I immediately thought about the exact same, I'm not saying player for player, but I'm talking about the abilities that this one came in the league with and the same exact type of mindset that you thought to pair with Derwin James. I thought of Nasir Adderley because Nasir Adderley was a ball hawk in college.
Yeah.
Genesis Smith is a ball hawk. But the difference is Genesis Smith is ginormous at 6'2". And for what you can do with him and his positional flexibility, you can do what you've been wanting to do with Derwin James. Again, move him around in the type of ways that Jesse Minter was to keep Derwin down in the nickel if you need to. You've been seeing a lot of these safeties kind of becoming a bigger profile that are able to fit and rotate in that nickel spot lately.
Yep.
So Genesis Smith gives you definitely great position of flexibility at the safety position. Remember, we were all talking about the talks about Emmanuel McNeil-Warren possibly being the Chargers' first round selection at 22 if that ended up coming off the board and what that would be like.
Too, by the way.
He did, to pair with Derwin James. But when I saw this for Genesis Smith, I immediately thought the old vision before the Jim Harbaugh era that they had to pair Nasir Adderley along with Derwin James. This one, I think, actually has a better chance of success trying to fit that. And again, combine Genesis Smith to not only be in a safety room with Derwin James, to be in a safety room with Unc Tony Jefferson.
Elijah Molden.
This is Elijah Molden. This is a young and upcoming safety group that actually has some good diversity between veteran and rookie and second-year player presence.
R.J. Mickens.
Yeah. Your safety group is going to be versatile, and I guarantee you Steve Klingscale was licking his chops probably when this was the announced pick, for sure.
I thought the same thing. So the thing for me with Genesis Smith is after kind of watching him, his best attributes and his best play is up through the catch point. After the catch point, questionable. But getting to the catch point, either before the offensive player, either to break it up for interceptions, for ranginess, that's where he thrives. He thrives in getting in the right position up to the catch point. Do you want him out there in open space to tackle? Different story. But if you give him that skill set to focus on, and if you let him play at his strengths, I think he's exactly what you need. The guy is super, super athletic.
More than capable of reading the field in a terrific way and still being able to make plays.
Yep. Bring some versatility and coverage. And again, at the end of the day, what I liked about this draft, some people can see it as a negative. I see it as a positive. The Chargers are actually able to focus on building depth in their roster. Sure, you can argue, they only got, maybe one starter or whatever, if Jake Slaughter becomes the guard. Is that a detriment, or is that speaking to how good the roster is? That your first round pick at edge is your third edge player on the roster. You look at your wide receiver picked in round 4, and he's like wide receiver 5, 6. Your guard and the tackles, they're all, everything's depth, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing, in my opinion. So Genesis Smith, your newest Los Angeles Charger safety. Then Nick Barrett comes in round 5, gives you a nose tackle, long-term, great against the run. And I think that's kind of what they brought him in here for specifically, was against the run versus the pass. And that interior defensive line, man, that's behemoths everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah, apologies. It's my fault, Dan. I had actually forgotten the slide on.
I was like, wait, this isn't him.
Nick Barrett. My bad. No, we'll talk about Nick Barrett because this was the first time in, if I'm remembering the streak properly, and this was including last year. It was 11 consecutive years dating back to Joe Ortiz's time with the Baltimore Ravens, where at least in the first 4 rounds, he has selected or been part of an organization that has selected an interior defensive lineman. And you have seen that over the past 2 years since he has been with the Chargers. The first one being with Justin Eboigbe, last year being with Jamari Caldwell. Now in the 5th round, this is the first year in the last 11 that it hasn't been in the first 4 rounds. But for Nick Barrett, who apparently was a very underrated prospect as far as talk, when you think about the interior defensive line and how its value kind of took a hit this year with some guys underperforming and not really being of the blue chip caliber that you were going to be hearing or that we thought we were going to be hearing about, toward way back at the early end of the college year. But as far as someone who can come in and really get after the run game, and again, you talk about this combination that you're going to be rotating in and out with now between Tierra Tart, Tomlinson, Caldwell, who I named, Justin Eboigbe, who I know that this staff is very high on. Just throw another name into the bucket here with Barrett. The investment that Joe Ortiz continues to make to rebuild the interior of this defensive line is impressive. If there's one thing that we can
add Mesidor too. I think you can add Mesidor to that group.
You can add Mesidor from the standpoint that he's that versatile enough to play inside on those certain packages that they have to have 3 edge rushers on the field. Now, again, was it eye-popping production from Barrett? No, but it was basically kind of the dirty work that he was able to do. And he did it well as it relates to the run game. So when we talk about guys that either got blown off the field or you're looking for like the interior pass rushers, the Peter Woods and the Caden McDonalds, that really led this team, or excuse me, led the interior defensive line class. Getting a run stuffer like Barrett in the 5th round here, again, just continues to remind me the investment that Joe Ortiz is putting into this defensive line and how it's already been able to, how the dividends have already started to play out. Round 4 2 years ago, round 3 last year, now round 5. And again, this isn't a starter that you're looking at, but another name to throw in that type of rotation with the skill set that he brings to the table. Again, Mike Elston, just take the reins from here. And I'm so excited to see what he's going to do with Nick Barrett.
The Chargers round out the draft class with 2 offensive linemen taken in the 200s. You saw Logan Taylor and Alex Harkey. Logan Taylor, I think they see as a flex. Alex Harkey, the guard. They bring in more offensive line. More depth for Joe Ortiz to use on the offensive side. I mean, people can argue and people complain that, they didn't take a guard in round 2, technically, or in round 3, or round 4. But when you look at it on the whole and you take a step back for a second, you see just how much focus they put on the interior offensive line, or the offensive line in general, flexibility included. It's hard to get on Joe Ortiz when everything anyone's talked about this entire offseason has been edge, but more importantly, interior offensive line. And if Jake Slaughter turns into what, again, this is the blue chip guy, the blue star guy for Joe Ortiz. This is the one guy they pounded the table on this year in the draft class. And he has a pretty damn good track record so far. I mean, go back to the Joe Ortiz draft classes since he's been here. And the high draft selection that has yet to play out so far has been the guy who hasn't been able to go on the field because of injury, in Junior Colson. Otherwise, go back and look at day 1 and day 2, hell, and early day 3. Aboigbe last year flashed. Jamar Caldwell flashed rookie season. Obviously, Joe Alt, Ladd McConkey. I mean, the list goes on and on. You saw Omarion Hampton last year. Saw Trey Harris last year. Looks great. So he hasn't really missed those top end players. And this is a high character guy in Slaughter. So it's hard for me to imagine when you get the brain trust of Mike McDaniel, Joe Ortiz, and Jim Harbaugh together that they screwed up that pick that was tailor-made for Mike McDaniel. Like, that's just really hard for me to buy into, that they messed that part up.
Yeah, I don't see it like that. Not with the way everything ended up playing out, especially on day 3. For Logan Taylor, 4 years starting experience for him. He's, like I mentioned earlier, he has played 4 different positions along that offensive line. He's got experience to do it anywhere. So you talk about insurance for a guy that you could have at any point in time, kick into guard or tackle. I'll admit, I would have thought that they would have gone a different direction with Harkey after them spending 3 of their picks at offensive line. I actually was thinking that it was going to be Harold Perkins, the linebacker out of the linebacker, because I thought, like, oh man, like that would be a nice jump ahead to think about, possibly next year when you don't have a certain linebacker in this room anymore. It might be the smart thing to get a year ahead of that. But they didn't end up doing that. They chose to go with Harkey in this standpoint. And again, for a guy who is an older player, but played tackle, doesn't have the length to play tackle in the NFL. It has more of it to fit better for guard, which is why they announced him for a guard, which I understand those type of circumstances. But he'll be much more, I think, of a developmental offensive lineman that your hope is going to be able to provide ultimately quality depth for yourself. But again, how could you knock it? 4 of your 8 draft selections that you ended up using went to the offensive line.
And again, like, you go back and look at this Chargers team, the reason that they did not continue on in the playoffs, I think everyone would agree, was the offensive line. And look at the assets that they've added. Look at the coaching staff that they've added to fix that, both in free agency and the draft. Hell, in UDFAs and the coaching staff. You add those guys, plus you're bringing back a Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, who apparently are ahead of schedule. You have the opportunity to possibly see the biggest glow up year over year on an offensive line group collectively. Go back to the starting 5 at the end of the year last year versus the starting 5 this year. I mean, there is no comparison. That was historically bad last year. And you could argue that at least 3 out of 5 are very good right off the bat. Very good to great. And Biotish in the tackles. Then you got Cole Strange, who's a scheme fit. And then Jake Slaughter, if he is who we think they are, who they think they are, very good. You get Justin Herbert some more weapons and Brennan Thompson. You get him some more weapons with Akheem Mitchell. You get him more pass protection with Charlie Kohler. Like, it just keeps going. And like I said at the top, this offseason didn't feel like a sexy one, but it felt like a very specific one. They needed to improve the trenches, both in depth and starting on the offensive line specifically.
Mm-hmm.
They bring in Jake Slaughter and 3 other draftees. They bring in Barrett and Mesidor on the defensive line to help with depth and immediate production.
I think you've rounded out your edge group nicely, bringing in Mesidor. And then in UDFA, it pretty much seemed once that Nadeem Tucker was not going to be selected that you thought to yourself, like, oh, well, this has to be a shoo-in, right? to have Nadeem Tucker go back to his former defensive coordinator from Western Michigan, Chris O'Leary. And sure enough, it happened.
Yes, it was June.
Which now may lead to, time may be ticking for Bud Dupree, because we've heard about already their promise that I'm already seeing from former, 5th round pick Kyle Kennard. They really like what they've seen. I think that he's going to end up having a much better year this year in this system than he did last year. I think he's going to put on weight. I think he's going to come in heavier. And now if you start thinking about the edge group like that, and to think about how you've kind of remade it, it's pretty good with some pass rushing juice.
And you add more capital. If you let go of Bud Dupree, that's more money. You have more cap space. I don't think they're done. I still don't think they're done.
Don't think they're done, because now I think the deadline for comp pick formula counting against you is now officially passed. So could I see them bringing in another offensive lineman? Yeah, I don't think you can take that off the table after what you saw over the last few days. And I actually was very surprised that they did not end up going and getting one of the tight ends on day 3 that I thought could have rounded out that group. So target that as a position that I think that they'll look to round that out with what they already have there in the room with Gadsden.
So we'll get more into the UDFA stuff and kind of what the overall big picture roster and stuff looks like. But overall, this seemed like a meat and potatoes type of draft. And unfortunately, the meat and potatoes were dried up for the last 2 seasons. Like, they needed it. Like, they had most of the sizzle, right? They got the Derwins and the Max and Tulis and the Trey Harris and Omarion and Justin. And, like, they got the star dudes, right? Like, they got that. Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt. But it's the underbelly. It's like the guys who aren't the stars but are still starters. Or depth. Those are the ones. And I feel like it has risen substantially since Joe Ortiz has been here. But it still had levels to rise. And so, to me, I see it as an endorsement of Joe Ortiz, that so much of this draft class was for depth and how much work he's put in over these past 2 years. Granted, the interior offensive line was an absolute failure over the past 2 years. I'll give you that, 100%. You can't foresee your 2 franchise tackles getting hurt, but still, interior was bad. But overall, the way that this roster has been turned over in 3 short off seasons, and it's not done. I mean, it looks nothing like what they looked like when they came in the building.
No.
So, well done. I like it. I like it. Some things to be determined, of course. But we're not sitting here saying, I cannot believe they didn't draft a guard. We're not sitting here saying they don't have an edge 3. They have now speed. They've got depth. They've got versatility all across. So, like, they did everything we asked for, and they traded down not once, but twice in the same draft. I mean, they checked off every single thing that Chargers fans have been wanting. Was it in the exact order and the exact style that you wanted? Maybe not. You got your interior offensive line. You got your trade back. You added draft capital. You traded up for a guy. You got your speed. And you got your edge. To me, mission accomplished, and then some. We went a little long here today, but I think we had to. A lot more guys that we thought we were going to be talking about than when we first started this thing. Jake, anything else on this draft class? Any thoughts? Closing arguments?
I'll end with this, Dan. I was reminded of a old quote about the draft from years ago, and I can't remember exactly verbatim, but in summation of it, it basically is the NFL draft is an exercise in taking the trends that happened the year before and trying to rectify them, perfect them, or adjust to them. What were the trends from last season? It was a negative. Justin Herbert was getting killed. That was the one thing that was consistent for the Chargers last year.
There was some good, but yes, that was the Achilles heel.
The exercise in this draft was to finally invest in protection for Justin Herbert. It may not have been with the players that we all thought was going to end up doing it. But in terms of gaining additional draft capital and spending a total of 4 draft selections on offensive linemen, the Chargers sent a message that they're willing to do that and sprinkle in some great depth pieces and impact players along the way in doing so. So as Dan said, it may not be the sexiest draft class on paper. It may not be the A+ draft that some people have out in their grades in, that the analysts like to throw out there. But in general, for what the Chargers had to do, they did it.
It's what they needed. I mean, people have been clamoring for how long for this team to invest in high capital in interior offensive line? Check. High capital in edge. Check. More weapons for Justin. Check. Improve the interior defensive line. Check. Add draft capital. Check. Build depth. I mean, this goes on. And so people can bitch all they want. No one's going to be happy, and everyone wants the same thing. They all want to see them succeed. And until they win Super Bowl, everyone's going to find a reason to whatever. But this seemed like the draft that they needed to have, that the roster needed, and it'll pay dividends later. More to come as we go through UDFAs. We'll talk through what is kind of next on the horizon in terms of potential free agents to be, some possible trade scenarios, some special guests possibly. Stay tuned. But, Jake, I'm going to give you one more opportunity to sit back and listen to that chime. So I feel like I can't have it end now.
It's not enough.
No. The Chargers 2026 NFL draft is in the books. This Chargers team got better, and we'll see how it plays out as off-season programs, workouts, training camp, all that stuff coming up. But until then, for Jake, I'm Dan. This is Charger Unleashed. Thanks, y'all, for riding with us. We'll talk to you in the next Chargers Unleashed.